Hi everyone, welcome to The Bridge. I'm your host, Kira Young, and you've reached me on Revolution Radio. Tonight we're simulcasting with Real Liberty Media, and it is the 1st of October, 2016 at 4 in the afternoon Eastern Time. We have a No Dakota Access show planned for you tonight. We've got some people lined up on the ground, ready to tell you what's going on right now. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in and for caring about what's going on. And the mainstream media is not gonna clue you in. I was just talking to an elderly couple in the Starbucks. As many of you know, I broadcast the show from my truck because I live in the woods, and the internet out there is really, really crappy. So I've come in town to do my show. And I like to be able to do it anywhere, so I could maybe sometime go on the road. Anyway, I was talking to this elderly couple, and they had no idea what was going on, but they were very, very interested. And they knew who Lawrence O'Donnell was, so I told them to check out his stuff, and then they said they would listen to my show too. So I hope you guys are listening. It was nice to meet you. Before we get started, I just want to encourage you again to check out our sponsors. Right now, we've got two, Done Right Buffalo Sauce.com and HealthMax CBD products. Listeners get 20% off all CBD products with the code KIRA420. And without further ado, I'm going to try to get in touch with Thomas H. Joseph II. He is one of the people who filmed this week's militarized response to native spraying. This is not only something that's important that's happened recently, but this is a pattern of behavior. Basically, I'm going to say it, from the psychopaths in charge. So we want to put this in context as well as tell you what's going on. So let's see if we can get Thomas on the line and add him to this call. We're fully prepared for people not being able to get signals and things like that. We got a lot of stuff lined up, so stay tuned. All right, on to number 2. We're going to give Uŋpa Nuŋpa a call, and he has somebody who is with him right now that we're going to talk to.
Hello.
Hey, welcome back to The Bridge. We didn't get Thomas, so I'm glad that you're there, and I'm glad that you've brought another guest with you to tell us her perspective about what's going on. Would you like
Absolutely.
to talk first, or do you want to introduce her, or how would you like to?
I'll go ahead and give you my thing,
okay.
And then I'll turn the show over to you and Zephyr, if that's okay, Kira.
That sounds great.
Okay, well, I want to thank you again for allowing me the opportunity to speak to your listeners today. It's always a real treat for me to be able to converse with you and to get the feedback from you after the show. We appreciate all of the support that has been offered and lent, and particularly the prayers and for our little camp in Ochete-Shikome. This was an interesting week. It started out last Sunday with a beautiful action that we had at 2 different work sites along the pipeline route. We had an incredible turnout of close to 300, if not over 300, protectors. There were no arrests. We were able to have a beautiful ceremony at the first site that we went to, where elders planted 6 willow trees directly in the path of where they have the pipeline completed. Songs were sung. There were allegations that came out of that action leveled against the protectors by Dakota Access and their employees. It's interesting that simple accusation from the employees have been the justification for banner scare headlines in local North Dakota newspapers, particularly the Bismarck Tribune. and in their newscasts as well. It's interesting to see that Dakota Access probably has no need for private security anymore, because our action on Wednesday, which has been widely publicized, showed that they have no need for that private security anymore, because the North Dakota State Patrol, the Morton County Sheriff's Office, as well as elements of other law enforcement drawn across North Dakota, and in addition to the North Dakota National, are acting as a private security force for Dakota Access Pipeline, the employees, and for Energy Transfer Partners CEO Kelsey Warren. The response on Wednesday to an action where fewer than 100 of our people actually attended was frightening, and an escalation on the part of the pipeline and indeed on part of the government. We were met with armored personnel carriers. We were met with heavily armed and rather aggressive law enforcement response. There were no National Guard on scene, but we were met with shotguns armed with beanbag bullets, police in riot gear, helicopter, even a plane. And it was upsetting in that, again, at this action, we had elders present, we had children present, and it was prayerful. It's not leading in a good direction the way they are responding to us. We are prayerful, we are peaceful, and to see this response, this growing response in militarization by the government in support of its private industry is distressing, to say the least.
It was terrifying. The video that Thomas had posted was terrifying, and you could hear in his voice how terrified he was filming that. And he had to leave somebody behind because he couldn't find him, and they were like, you know, leave now or you're not going to be able to get this out. I mean, he thought he was, literally ready to die. It was that terrifying. And it was terrifying for the viewers.
Sorry, go ahead.
The viewers as well were terrified watching it.
That Wednesday action, as I said, was not well attended. And that is because it seemed to have been planned and carried out by just a few, and not with coordination with those who are actually, coordinating and training the direct action efforts within the camp. And it was interesting to see us go from Sunday, where we were in large numbers, unified and stuck together, and we had no arrests that day, to Wednesday, and we will not allow Wednesday to happen again. There's already been much discussions in the camp on how to avoid that from happening again, and how for us to respond to this escalation by law enforcement and by DAPL. We have a pretty good influx in the camp this weekend, as we usually do every weekend. We are hopeful that our next action will be larger and get us back to where we have law enforcement understand again that we are prayerful and we are peaceful, and they are overreacting and they are worsening the situation with their responses. They still don't know how to respond to people armed with sage in their hands. They still know how to respond to people with songs coming from their mouths and prayers in their heart. We need to continue the path we have been going on. Kira, I'd like to share with your listeners a list of the direct action principles that are posted around the camp, if I may.
Please do.
Okay, well, these are the direct action principles that guide us, and we've adhered to them from the beginning, and we continue to adhere to them to the present. And these are very basic principles, and the first of those is that we are protectors, not protesters. We are there to protect water. We are there to defend land. We are peaceful and prayerful, and we maintain that. During this week, the Bismarck Tribune, on an unnamed source and a security guard, at that a private security guard paid for by DAPL, actually printed an accusation that one of the protectors had a gun in their waistband at the Sunday action. Nothing could be further from the truth. We are unarmed in camp, and we adhere to that, and we police each other in regards to these principles. Continuing on with the principles, isms have no place here at our camp. Whatever your political persuasion might be, you need to check that at the front gate. We are a prayer camp. We are there to use prayer. The isms, liberalism, socialism, anarchism, need to be left behind if you wish to be a part of our direct actions. We are nonviolent, and we will continue to remain nonviolent even in the face of their ongoing violence, whether that violence is actual physical violence, intimidation, environmental violence, economic violence. We remain committed to nonviolence. We teach respect always for the local people of Standing Rock and the non-Indian people in the area as well. We are aware that we are visitors here, and we are guests, and we always bear that in mind. There are no weapons or what can be considered a weapon allowed in the camp or at the actions. Property damage does not get us any closer to our goals. All protectors must go through direct action orientation and training if they wish to participate in the actions. And these are disciplined, well thought out, well-planned training for those who wish to train us. No children are allowed in any potentially dangerous situations, and this is becoming increasingly problematic because of the reaction and the response from law enforcement and the government. And we are to keep each other accountable to these principles. If we see somebody straying from these principles, they are rebuked and reminded of what we are about. And finally, we are reminded that this is a ceremony, that we are to act accordingly, that we are to conduct ourselves as if in sacred ceremony when we are at direct actions. There are drum groups, there are pipes, and there's constant prayer and offerings made when participating in an action. We always, always remember this, and we always, always remember these principles.
Thank you for sharing that, and I respect that greatly. I really do. It shows an evolution in the movement that's in a really good direction that I'm happy to see. I did want to take a minute to just put things in historical perspective in terms of, most people don't realize that Native religion was outlawed in this country until 1978. This type of militarized response while people are praying is people are not only going to have feelings and reactions to the present, but historical trauma also comes into play here because this is a repeated thing that keeps happening. So when that plane came over, which I don't think is a coincidence, I don't think it was tear gas, but I understand why people thought it was tear gas because given the historical trauma, why wouldn't they think that that's another aspect of the attack on them? I do think it was timed that way to give the impression of that. And it was flying rather high to be a crop duster. So it's all very odd the way things happened with regard to that plane and it spraying something.
Yes, and the elevation that it was flying at, it's utterly ridiculous that it was crop dusting anything at that height.
Right.
I believe, and this is just my own, after thinking about it and giving it much thought, that it was deliberate just to sow fear, kind of like a psyop on the protectors who were present there. Because if they were spraying anything that was harmful to the protectors, well, they were spraying their own people as well. They're fully taking that type of action. But nobody showed any signs of irritant. And so I think it was more to spread fear and to discourage protectors from showing out. But I firmly believe that after people saw the videos and heard the eyewitness testimony coming from the protectors of what happened on Wednesday, our next action, far from people being discouraged, more will show up. Every time they escalate on us, it boomerangs on them in terms of support and the public perception of what is happening. For instance, going back to the action where dogs were used on our people, our numbers doubled after that action. People were outraged, and rightfully so. The fact that prayerful protesters defending land, protecting water, had vicious dogs set upon them. Well, just as that happened with the dog action, I believe that was where we saw loaded weapons pointed at women and children.
Right.
It is only going to elicit more support for what we are trying to accomplish here, which is killing their black snake, ending this pipeline once and for all.
And it is spreading. There's a group that had an action today at the Mississippi. So Mississippi Stand is also fighting to stop a pipeline from going under the Mississippi as well. So please look that up. They put a call out today. They need people. And I like to see this spreading and us just making it too hard for them to build these, just too expensive, because it's already not a sustainable, to frack or this type of extraction is not sustainable to begin with. So for us to add extra monetary cost for them, it's going to become impossible. But I'm sure they'll find a way for taxpayers to pay for it all. And then the taxpayers blame the people instead of the companies that's getting their tax dollars. Which is how it goes.
Absolutely. And this fight is exposing how government and industry in this country go hand in hand. The fact that the government, rather than protecting our people, they're protecting water and defending the land. They're protecting pipeline workers, protecting profits, and it is exposed. And hopefully, more people will wake up to this system. That this is the system that they defend. This is the system they support. Whether they vote either party, this November, Democrat, Republican, these pipelines are going to continue. There's already 4 other proposed pipelines from the Bakken Formation. We're going to have to continue this unity and solidarity among not just indigenous peoples, but all concerned peoples, and everyone should be concerned about these pipelines. To continue this must become a fight against the industry and against the government. Entities that have already poisoned the earth. These are what we are attempting to do is stop the ultimate destruction of our environment to make it uninhabitable for human beings. But we already know we're poisoned. I frequently tell people in camp who are guests to look around Ochenteshikoi. To the south of us is the Cannonball River, fresh water source alleged. To the east of us is one of the major rivers of. Yet we can't water from it drinking. We can't draw water from it. That is why we need bottled water brought in by the hundreds of millions, if not millions, by this point. It highlights the problem. It highlights the fight. It highlights the for everyone in this country to keep up, wake up, and educate themselves about the issues. Educate themselves about the issues.
It's very important that we keep getting this out and that people don't get fatigued individually. So because some people there in the camps are already taxed physically from having to live in poisonous conditions, we need enough people to do this in shifts so that some people can take over for a while, then go rest and let the others take over for a while, so that we're not putting too much on just a small group of people. That's my really strong feeling, is not to let anybody carry the full weight. We need people to just keep supporting and coming and showing up. Doesn't matter when you get there, just get there.
I agree, Kira, but we've already seen that. We've been there long enough now to where some have come and stayed long enough able to, and then for whatever personal reasons have had to return home, but we have also seen them return. Your guest who is following me did exactly that herself. Personal business.
I'm sorry. Can you say that again? You just cut out. I didn't hear that last thing.
Okay, the guest who is following me, Zephyr Elise, already was one who was here for a considerable time, returned to take care of personal business, and now has returned to camp and plans on winter camp. And with winter camp coming, one thing I am stressing to people is that we are going to have to find a way for those in winter camp to be able to take breaks away for a weekend or a few days and recharge, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Once winter sets in here, we're looking at days with only, 8 to 9 hours of sunlight. It's going to be long periods of darkness, potentially in, life-threatening cold and winter conditions. So people will need an opportunity to get away, and others will have to come and support while, others are decompressing, so to speak, from the winter conditions. The chocolate is on winter camp. There are sacred stone camps, very lodging. All of the meetings, some on how to prepare with appropriate lodging, appropriate gear. There's things coming up, and a lot of the talk. It's Wednesday. I believe it's Wednesday, October 5th. It's the day for the hearing on the tribe's emergency motion for injunction pending appeal. That is going to be heard in District of Columbia Circuit Court of Appeals. DAPL, we learned this past week, has even retained a law firm by the name of Gibson, Dunn, and Crutcher. Now, this is a firm that has been named an unprecedented 3 times Litigation Department of the Year by the American Lawyer, which is a monthly law magazine. They brought in their big guns. They are paying top dollar for their attorneys. The lead attorney that will be representing DAPL on Wednesday before the Circuit Court of Appeals is a gentleman by the name of Miguel Estrada. He is going to be arguing DAPL's position before the Court of Appeals. It will be a 3-judge panel. We know that one of the judges is quite conservative in their views. We also know that one of the judges has demonstrated herself to be quite fair and balanced and knowledgeable about Indian country issues. And the third one, of course, is a swing vote. Mr. Estrada is an interesting person in himself. He was nominated to that same court, the D.C. District Court, by George W. Bush. Democrats, suspicious of his ultra-right-wing and overly pro-business views, successfully filibustered his appointment to that court. He has, according to his own personal biography, argued more than 22 cases before the United States Supreme Court. The tribe's interest, the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, they'll be represented by a gentleman by the name of Jan Hasselman. He is an attorney for the nonprofit Earth Justice. He will be arguing our side at this Wednesday. He has a pretty good track record with environmental causes across the country. He will be arguing the tribe's contention that the Dakota Access Pipeline violates provisions of what is called the National Historic Protection Act. That is cited in the tribe's motion, these violations of the Protection Act. In the tribe's motion for relief, they also cite that the vast majority of the pipeline's impacts on federally protected waters went forward under a Clean Water Act nationwide permit issued in 2012 by the Corps of Engineers. Now, this was a blanket permit which pre-approved construction without any consultation on the pipeline's impacts on the tribe's sacred sites. That permit, according to the filing by the attorneys for the tribe, that permit authorized Dakota Access to make a unilateral determination of the impacts on the tribe's sacred sites. That denied our people the opportunity to participate in the process as required under the National Historic Protection Act, except for a few areas where they did consult with the tribe. Under the National Historic Protection Act, and I'll quote it, consultation must occur regarding sites with religious and cultural significance to Indian tribes, even if they occur on private land. Mm-hmm. Which is interesting because your listeners, and I'm sure you're aware, the Dakota Access Pipeline went about buying the historic Cannonball Ranch. And, the 6,000 acres were transferred from private agricultural hands into energy companies' hands in violation of North Dakota state law. They have a Depression-era law still on the books. It's an anti-corporate farming law that is very narrowly defined. And by any reasonable reading of that law, the purchase of DAPL of the ranch is illegal under North Dakota law. And I know attorneys are already efforting to get the paperwork necessary done to start that process in order to prevent the sale of the ranch to DAPL or Energy Transfer Partners, the company that has the contract for the pipeline.
That's great information. Everything that you've just told the listeners is fantastic information, and thank you.
On Wednesday, the listeners will remember to burn some sage, burn some cedar, think good thoughts, offer strong prayers on Wednesday. Even if it is adverse for us on Wednesday, it is far from over, Kira. I messaged you last week, if you remember. Everything that's occurring now is merely prologue. And when we look back on this later from now, we will realize that, everything that happens now seems of great importance because it's of the moment and we're living it. But this is just the beginning. And we'll see, after Wednesday, we'll get a little bit clearer definition on where the legal case stands. But that does not affect our efforts for direct action from Oceti Sakowin. We will continue to fight this pipeline with all legal means available to us in a spiritual way, in a good way. We have only begun to fight. We have only begun to use the resources available to us. And as winter comes, as I told you, Kira, we are preparing for winter camp. And I do appreciate you. It told me that many of your listeners reached out and do want to offer support to Zinkala Uzaha camp, our Swiftbird camp directly. And after the show, I will provide you with information. And I would like to say to you, your listeners who do wish to support our camp directly, if they could just contact you, and we will have mailing addresses and phone numbers that you will be able to provide for them if they do wish to offer assistance, because I'm not afraid to ask for it now. Yeah. We are in need of winter gear for our camp members. And I'm talking basic stuff, just like thermal underwear for men and women, waterproof boots, things of that nature, wool socks, and we'll get together a list and be able to provide it to you. And those of your listeners who do wish to support us will have the opportunity to do so very shortly.
Okay, great. That's wonderful. And in addition to the legal challenges that you outlined, we still have, as we mentioned in a past show, the environmental challenge as well, because of the endangered butterfly in the path of this pipeline, and then also the Dakota Access Pipeline people destroying the evidence of the sacred site when they release the dogs on the people. So there's also legal challenges to that, plus legal challenges to their security people who unleashed vicious dogs on the people with pepper spray and all that. And I would encourage those who were injured to challenge, because right now what the sheriff's department is saying is that unless it's reported, it didn't happen, basically, which is, their way of probably entrapping people to
Indeed.
Yeah. So it's they need to do some sort of class action where a lawyer will take care of the whole thing for them and they don't have to go down there. So we need some sort of legal assistance in that. And maybe it's already happening and I just don't know about it. It's behind the scenes or what have you.
Yes.
Yeah. So lots of changes.
Well, we're already seeing, the industry. It was funny this past week. I had an opportunity to be on the internet for a little while, and I believe it was on Wednesday. I saw a Reuters report where a gentleman by the name of Jim Volker, he is the CEO for Whiting Petroleum. Whiting Petroleum is rather small compared to Energy Transfer Partners, the main contractor for the Lakota Access Pipeline. But they were talking about tribal concerns when it comes to our secret burial sites. And he reacted typically, and just goes to show the disconnect between our way of thinking and their way of thinking. He said our concerns would be best addressed through economic opportunities for our people, including, the industry contracting with American Indian-owned firms for water hauling and other oil field service needs, across oil-producing regions. In fact, his quote in the Reuters report, and I'll quote from him directly here, if I may. And this is Jim Volker, as I said, CEO for Whiting Petroleum. We, as an industry, like to see them provide those services. It does provide a better standard of living for them. It does provide a direct tie to the energy business and makes them and their tribal leaders more inclined to want to have more energy development. End quote. That is a complete misunderstanding of our people. And I know that Mr. Archambault, the leader of the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, has already told them that is not where we're at. We do not want more energy development. We want alternative energy development. If it involves any type of activity like we have seen associated with this pipeline, we've already demonstrated what our response will be, and we will not be bought off. I would rather starve in the dark than participate in the rape of Mother Earth. I would rather my children struggle day to day doing what we had to do to survive than have our hands and our spirits dirtied by being willing participants for the sake of $1. His statement is ridiculous and absurd. We have just two different ways of thinking here, two different ways of looking at things.
Yeah.
For Lakota people, being a warrior was not a question of fighting and killing. It wasn't. It was much deeper than that. Sitting Bull spoke to what it meant to be a warrior. And when he spoke to it, he talked about a warrior takes care of the elderly, protects children, makes sure no one is hungry, makes sure no one is cold. It wasn't about fighting and killing. So the Lakota way of thinking, and this is a really good example of it. Traditionally, the greatest thing a Lakota warrior could do in battle was known what is counting coup. And most warriors had a coup stick. So that when we were engaged in battle, it was more important to ride up close to the enemy, as close as you could, and strike him with this coup stick upon his person and then ride away. He had to live with that shame the rest of his life, your enemy. When the warrior returned to camp after counting coup, that was the greatest honor he could receive, not killing that enemy, but striking him in battle and having the honor of having done that he touched the enemy without being injured himself, without killing the enemy. Counting coup was our highest honor, not killing. That is the difference between Lakota thinking and the way these Americans live their lives.
Yeah, and you can see that difference also in the concept of wealth itself, that the richest family is the one that gave away the most, not the one that kept the most for themselves. The richest, wealthiest family is the one who was blessed enough to be able to give the most.
Absolutely. our leaders, and we were just discussing this around the Wing campfire last night, generosity was one of the most important values in a leader. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they were willing to give away the shirt on their back to those who needed it in camp, even to strangers in camp, those are the values of leadership that matter to Lakota people, not the amassing of wealth that you see occur in America and among Americans, where a billionaire can buy his way to where he's this close to the presidency. There is no honor in that. There is nothing to respect there in amassing of a personal fortune to Lakota way of thinking, to indigenous way of thinking. The generosity of one is what is important. That is a prime example of the stark differences in the sides in this fight to kill the black snake.
And life is sacred. That's what's sacred. That's why counting coup is more of a victory than having to kill someone, because you had to kill someone. And that's why when you do have to kill for your own sustenance, for eating, that's why the spirit of the animal is thanked. That's why every single piece of that animal is used, because that animal's life is sacred, and that animal is your brother, your relative. Totally different orientation altogether.
Absolutely, Kira, and that was very well put. Okay, Kira, I am going to right now say thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you. It's always a pleasure. And I want to thank each and every one of your listeners who has offered prayers, who has burned some sage or cedar for us. And for those of your listeners who would like to lend direct support to Zinkala Luzaha Camp, Swiftbird Camp at Ochete Shikoni, I will provide that information to you later today, Kira. But right now, I really am very happy and honored to turn the phone over to your next guest. And once again, thank you, Kira, and thank you to your listeners. Right now, I'd like to put on Zephyr Elise.
Thank you.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thanks for joining us here on the bridge. And thank you for what you're doing in the camps there. Tell us about you and why you went in the first place. What was it that precipitated your arrival there?
Well, in our way, I'd like to start by saying thank you to the spirits, ancestors, and people of these lands that I'm talking to you from here at Standing Rock. For your listeners, my name is Zephyr Elise. I am of the Nuna, Nawa, and Zapotec nations. I am, my Hunka Ina is adopted Oglala Lakota from here at Pine Ridge. I am standing here with a call from ancestors that said the people need help and they're asking for help. And I was granted so much love and support from my community. I came from Hoochie, known by the occupation name of Oakland, California. I'm here standing for Indian Canyon Nation of Ohlone with their love and support. I'm here standing for the Two-Spirit Council of Indian Canyon, as well as standing for my Pahi Woven New family from the Tonga Territories in LA. And all my relatives really would love to be here to show support, but because of life and dealing with capitalism and its requirements for life, they could not make it here. So they sent me here with their prayers and their love, and I had a dream that I was on the road here, and I had 12 cents in my pocket when that dream came, and I asked ancestors, yes, however you can provide, I will be ready. And within 12 hours, money started pouring in. I hadn't even asked. People were just, are you going to Standing Rock? And I said yes. And they're like, here's some gas money, here's some food money. And ever since then, the way has been really paved in quite a powerful way. The ancestors, I told them, look, I'm here. I have two hands. I have a heart for prayer. Use me. But I'm desert nation. I am southern. I am not used to the Lakota winters. I need a teepee. I need a warm place to stay. I'll stay as long as I can, as long as I'm upright. But I need that support. And within a week, I came up here not really knowing any of the camps. I knew your previous guest from outside of here, but I wasn't so forward as to think I could join his camp. So I ended up at the Winging camp with my canoe sister, and through that was asked by the elder if I would stay and watch over the camp through winter. So I've taken on that commitment. And our Wiña camp, it's for listeners who do not know Lakota, Wiña is woman. In Lakota, it is the women, children, and two-spirit safe space camp that was started by our relatives that came out from Seattle and Portland about 7 or 8 weeks ago. And we just provide safety and security for women who might be traveling alone, for two-spirits who might not feel necessarily welcomed in some of the broader spaces of camp. While I'm in residence, I will always have a cup of tea. I'll have an ear. I will have a safe space, shelter from the wind for anyone who needs it in camp. It's hard to be out on the front lines. I greeted many relatives coming back in that were on the front lines on Wednesday, and they were shaken. They were scared. It definitely did something. So it felt good to be able to offer in a good way those cups of tea, that warm broth, whatever I had that could help them to reconnect back into community and to know that they were safe and they were cared for, even if it was just for a moment by the campfire. So that's how I made it here, and that is my calling. I'm here, like so many others, to do this heavy spiritual work of stopping this black snake that threatens not only Native peoples here, but all peoples. You know, the Oglala Aquifer also relies on the Missouri, and that is a lot of our agricultural water. So even if you don't directly drink the Missouri water, you are eating products grown from that water. And who of us here doesn't like to eat? Who of us here can sustain without food and water? So I'm here to lay those prayers down and to do whatever the work is needed to make sure that this pipeline is stopped.
Thank you. Wow, that's a lot. I connect with so much of what you said. How long were you in Oakland before you showed up?
I've lived in the Ohlone territories for going on 5 years. And as of 4 or 5 weeks ago, I packed up my entire life into a storage unit, undid everything I've been building, and came up here.
Wow. Well, I'm glad you're there. What are some of the biggest challenges in your camp right now?
You know, everybody likes to joke around that winter is coming, but it is real. Our nights are getting colder. The days are starting to already show signs of getting shorter. For a really long time, we held steady numbers. But, you know, as the winter comes, as life is coming, as people are having to go back to families and obligations, our camp is getting smaller for the winter right now. Our Wiña camp only has 2 people that I know, myself and one other, who is a doula coming out to offer services for the winter, that have dedicated to staying and holding the camp down through the winter. So, you know, having enough hands just to do the work of, you know, hauling water, chopping firewood, gathering, kindling, keeping the fire going, keeping food on. My dream and my goal for our Wiña camp is to use as little fossil fuel materials as possible. So even to cooking, I'm cooking over a campfire, which means, you know, a pot of stew might take a lot more effort when it's gathering firewood, and firewood is starting to get a little bit scarce. I'm definitely trying to keep our camp self-sustaining as possible so we don't take from the resources of the larger camp. So, you know, going out and finding not only the resources to either purchase stuff or to barter and trade, but then to go and make those transactions definitely takes up a lot of time. And just, you know, the winterizing the tent, making sure they're watertight and windtight, that they can withstand the rain and the winds that are coming, takes up time. And then, you know, we definitely are open to holding, you know, deep listening space for those who need it. So in my day, I might have a plan for what the day's going to look like, but I never know who creator and ancestors are going to send my way that need that time and that space. So it's a struggle to juggle, even as I've disconnected from the quote-unquote modern world and the capitalism hustle. It's still challenging to, you know, navigate time and duty and to still feel present and go and greet the relatives when they come in. Illumination just arrived this morning, bringing good songs and asking to cross into territory in a good way, and they brought with them a salmon bake for the camp for tonight, bringing their coastal medicine, that good food to us. But as soon as they got there, they were asking for help to dig the salmon pits and help to prepare, and my first inclination was to go, but I also had duties to do at my Wiña camp. So it's always hard to want to be available. And right now I am nursing 3 sprains and a stress fracture. And I'm also permanently abled anyway. I'm chronically ill, and I have a chronic injury. So all those things, it's difficult to balance. But I know coming here in a good way, showing up for my relatives in a humble way, it will be okay. And I have been supported to staying thus far, and I know it will continue.
Wow. I did want to also take the way that you introduced yourself and translate it for the non-native listeners.
Translation is good.
There was so much there. So you are adopted Lakota, and you are also Native yourself, but from south of the border, correct?
Yes, from our tribal lands lying in Guanajuato, Mexico.
I've seen a few of the videos of basically expressing this is a time of the condor and the eagle coming together. And my last guest last week had suggested it's sort of symbolic of the heart and mind as well. The eagle and the condor, the nations of the southern tribes and the northern tribes coming together for this common purpose. So it's special. It's a really, really special time right now, and I'm excited to be able to witness it. And I want to come, and I want to thank you in person someday for what you're doing for the people, and for all people, not just our indigenous people, but for all people, and for the planet, who is our mother to us all.
Absolutely, and thank you for that. And I will say, when you camp, we'll always have something hot and a cup of tea waiting on you. And a good hug. Thank you for the work you're doing to bring this work to a broader perspective and to a wide audience. You know, we all have our work to do. Some of us are on the front lines, and some of us are making sure that we're not forgotten on the front line. So hands lifted in the Pacific Northwest way in gratitude for that work that you're doing as well.
Thank you. I also wanted to ask a little bit more about You have a doula there. Do you have like midwives as well in camp there, and moon lodge and things like that for the women?
So to my knowledge, there are kind of rotating healers that come through. I do know last week there were some natural healers and women who do know childbirthing. Our doula is arriving. She is on the way, but not quite here yet. Sometime early October is the projected arrival date. As far as I know, people come and go every day, every hour of the week, so it's kind of hard to keep abreast of who is exactly in camp. But what I have always seen in my journey through camp and in talking with others and making connections and making relations is we are taken care of, and we're well taken care of. And there have been such an outpouring of healers of all formats and all traditions that I don't think we are in want for any support for those who need care, whether it's, long-term for those of us who have chronic things or who get injured at camp, or, who might need somebody to talk to. It does seem like we are very well cared for here in the encampment.
That's good to know. That's good. And there are pregnant women in camp, so there will be births in camp.
There will be, and as another of my midwife friends always like to say, babies love the worst day in winter to come.
They do.
So we already know. We're already waiting on it.
And I think that's because it's dark. So the transition, it might be from warm to cold, but at least it's not from warm dark to cold light. It's just still dark. At
exactly.
least there's that.
At least there's continuum somewhere in all this, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It gives us a good reason to visit by campfires and stay warm, visiting with each other. So I'm looking forward to it a little.
Yeah, and that older way of being where there's all these generations hanging out together, telling stories, and the only thing you're fighting over is who gets to hold the baby, you know?
Right. That's a good fight. That is another good fight.
Yep. So that's really
we
good.
always let the elder auntie go first because we know she's going to get tired first anyway.
Yep. Yep. There are certain, I'm sure there'll be naming ceremonies. There'll be all kinds of special little arrivals that come from, especially after a long winter where you only have 9 hours of sunlight.
Life.
Yep.
It's the cycle of life. It continues, and I will say I've been named by my grandfather and recognized by my community as a two-spirit, and in our traditional way, we were very much key not only in the spiritual work of our tribe, but also for both bringing in the young ones and giving them that blessing as they arrived here on the belly of this mother we all share. And, holding space for the elders as they departed into the spirit world. So I do feel honored to be able to fulfill long-standing family, to come forward in this way and to offer those prayers and those blessing stones as the young ones arrive. It's good to finally be allowed to be who I was born to be from Creator, an ancient grandmother and ancient grandfather.
Yeah, and that's another beautiful part of the Lakota tradition is that the two-spirit tradition and the old way of we all have a special reason for being here and a place of honor in society. The Lakota orientation toward two-spirit people is the only tradition that's ever really made sense to me. So I was so happy to hear that there is a two-spirit camp there because one of the things that's been sort of colonized out of Lakota spaces is that, and now it's coming back, so it's a good thing. Hey, can you guys stick around? We're going to take a little break.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Be right back.
Okay.
Welcome back to The Bridge with Kira. This is the second hour on the 1st of October 2016. Right now I'm talking to Zephyr Elise, and we were in the middle of a conversation about the two-spirit tradition. And I do apologize for the wind that you guys are hearing. It's just, they have to stand outside in the wind. I don't know how we're going to do this in the winter, but we'll figure out a way to keep you up on the story. But welcome back, Zephyr.
Thanks so much. And yes, Wind Nation is also making a very prominent appearance.
Yep. Is on our side, I think, though, too.
I think so.
Yeah. So just to continue that thought about the Lakota two-spirit tradition, and just to get a little bit sort of deeper into it, I'll just tell you what I was taught, and that's basically that actually we all have two spirits, but some of us, our dominant spirit is not the same as our body. So some of us have a female body, but a more dominant male spirit, and some of us has a male body with a more dominant female spirit. And there is no such thing as gay marriage in Lakota tradition. There's just marriage. You just marry the person you love, and there is no concept of two people given the same body marrying each other having any sort of significance whatsoever. Because when you marry someone, you marry their spirit. There's a meeting of spirits there. So that's always been understood in Lakota tradition, and I'm so overjoyed to see it come back because I've been talking about it for 20 years, And I used to get into arguments with Lakota people about it, and they're like, "No, that's not my tradition." But now it's coming back, and I had a feeling it always would, because the truth is the truth, and it'll always be revealed in time.
Absolutely. And I mean, we never went anywhere.
Exactly.
There have always been two spirits among us. I would say across Turtle Island, this is a tradition that we had. It was a tradition that the occupiers and invaders went after, I think, the most viciously initially, because it was so opposite of their dearly held Puritan or Catholic beliefs. We really pushed what is binary, and we really pushed a tradition that flew in the face of patriarchy and honored sacred divinity as both male and female. So, of course, fly in, our oral stories of when they first started coming into our lands. There was a village on the other side of the mountain where our sacred, two-spirit people were at, where they could do their work, and then they come into the village to the other side for the people. And the invaders specifically attacked with the most vicious methods possible that two-spirit encampment, with dogs that were programmed to maim and eat people, with the pitch tar balls that were lit that would light our relatives on fire once it touched them. And I think the viciousness of that attack continued in the boarding school era or the mission system. Wherever you are, the long coats came to tell us to hate ourselves, hate our skin, hate our identity, hate, all these ways that we are taught to be natural and to be in tune and connection to Creator, to spirits, and to each other. And so I'm very honored to see we have actually now two spirit camps currently. And I don't think there can be too many two spirits out there. This is some really deep spiritual work we're doing, and as two spirits, we have historically and traditionally been holders of spiritual space and doing the spiritual labor, as well as doing a lot of the emotional labor and the care for the community. We tend medicine, we tend plants, we tend young ones, we tend elders, we tend babies. That is part of our roles and responsibility in our communities. And for the listeners who might want to conflate two-spirit with the LGBTQ, AAII community, as I was taught, two-spirit has nothing to do with who I'm drawn to in the bedroom and everything to do with my roles and responsibilities that I enact in my community.
Yeah, so and there's always been an aspect of Lakota tradition that honors what you're gifted with. Regardless of your package. So there's many stories of female warriors who either chose to marry women or men or whatever. They just, if that's what they were good at, that's what they were honored for.
Right.
Yeah, so there's that. And then there's also the Wink Day, which is basically the holy person, the two-spirit holy person. And there are certain ceremonies that person would have to go through to become that revered holy person. So people get that confused too, the Wink Day with the two-spirit. And, I guess we're getting a little bit in the weeds, but I kind of like it here,
To decolonize means to revitalize their language and perhaps to come up with, new language, because they tried to take our people, our bodies, ourselves, but they also took our words and our ways too. So I think it's a beautiful time to bring back and to grow those seeds back that they thought they buried.
Right.
And bring back better terms and a newer understanding. As Indigenous people, we have always evolved with our mother that we're on and our surroundings and the needs of the time. Tradition is constantly growing. It is a breathing thing just as much as this ancient grandmother we are all a part of.
Yeah, change, and it's that perfect balance between allowing the changes that need to occur and honoring the pieces of our tradition that are that we need to keep.
Absolutely. Without some understanding of where we come from, how do we have that direction to know how to go where we're going?
Mm-hmm. Right. So
thank you for bringing that up, and just for all the two spirits out there who might be disconnected, you're not alone. That would be my message to anyone listening. I think because our community likes, our broader dominant culture likes to say that we're too different, or to this for the LGBTQ community, to that for the cis hetero community. Just remember we are not alone, and that there's so many of us here, at Standing Rock and throughout the world, still laying down that medicine, bringing those deep prayers.
I would like to share a vision that I had with you. I guess I had this vision about 20 years ago. And it was about the Moon Lodge. And all the women would bleed together. And so it was this special time during the dark moon where all the women would bleed together depending on the season. It would go to full back to full and dark, and the men would take over the work of the women, and the two spirits would help, and the two spirits were like the go-between between the regular camp and the Moon Lodge, and would bring the food and supplies to the Moon Lodge from the regular camp. That was my vision. So
that is a beautiful vision and a reawakening. And I think you hit that very key point. As two spirits, we are often bridges. We're called to be bridges between worlds, between here in spirit world, or between men and women's camp, or between people who might not necessarily know how to get along in a good way. We're always called to be those bridges and to bring understanding and connection.
And great counselors and listeners, especially for our youth who face so many challenges right now. So for a two-spirit person who's developed the strength and character and survived our overarching culture, that what more perfect guide for our youth than somebody who has survived and come into a place of power after all that.
I would agree. And back in my home communities, I do see the two spirits really stepping up in powerful ways and connecting with youth that, may not have somebody to listen and to be really empathetic to the challenges that our youth are facing. And there's a lot of them. Our youth are being snatched still. A lot of times we say, historical trauma, but if they're still grabbing our youth and our young ones with violence, with the threat of violence, with sexual violence, with alcohol and drugs, with, our suicide, the illness of suicide that's going across the youth, what better medicine, like you said, than the two spirits to be there to try to interrupt that and to bring some empathy and some love and some support when it's needed.
Yeah, so I'm really, really happy that there's not only one but two spirit camps, and maybe there will be more. Maybe there'll be one in every direction.
I think that would be what a beautiful thing to have the four directions being held down by some two spirits, bringing that good medicine.
I'm with you on that. So,
well, I'm with your vision, and in truth, our Leon camp has been trying to erect a Moon Lodge since it started. Right now, I think we're still in kind of survival, get prepared mode, but I do also think that's a beautiful vision to start enacting that tradition and having that space for women in their power to go and to remember that that is power and that is deep medicine and that's a deep ceremony. It's a very personal ceremony, and not to be ashamed and not to, need to look down because it's moon time, but to be able to hold head high and say, I get to go to the Moon Lodge.
Yeah, and receive my vision. Cause that's a time of opening. So not only physical opening and detoxing, but, so the root chakra opens, but so does your crown chakra. And just to put it in those terms, and that's a time when all the women should be together receiving their vision. So it's a powerful time, and so I don't argue with people that the need to separate during that time. And people always think like that's where you're going with it, like, but that's not at all where I'm going with it. We need to banish the shame, like you just said about it. There's no shame. This is a powerful, blessing that we've been given, the ability to bring life into this world. And so I think if we're able to orient our young girls who are just beginning to take on their womanhood in that way, if we can orient them to how sacred and how special and how powerful it is and what an honor it is in our actions, not only our words, so right now we're sort of at the words place and we're beginning to take those actions. But because our kids, they do listen to what we say, but more importantly that, if we don't want them to smoke cigarettes, then we can't smoke cigarettes. If we don't want them to drink, we can't drink. If we don't want them to have shame about their bodies, then we have to work on our shame too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, gosh, I'm really glad to have this conversation. This is stuff I love to talk about.
This is a great day. This is a beautiful day to be Native wherever you are.
Yep. I did have another person that's scheduled. He is on the road, so I'm not sure if he's going to answer or not, but would you mind sticking around to see if he does?
I am here till you say you don't need me.
Okay. All right. Let's try to bring him in here. His name is John, and he's been there in camp as well.
Hello.
Hey, John.
How are you?
Hi. Good. Welcome to the bridge. Thanks for
Thank you
for joining us. I don't know if you've been listening. I know you're on the road, but we're having a great conversation now about the camps, and it's my understanding that you have been there. Is that you've?
I'm actually just left a while ago. Yeah, I've been here off and on for a little over a month.
Okay, so which camp were you staying in?
Sachungu.
Oh, okay, right on. And what brought you there? What precipitated your arrival?
Well, I've got a lot of friends that were on Pine Ridge, and I knew that this was affecting everybody. So I've been an environmental advocate the latter part of my life. I'm a photojournalist, freelance journalist, and I didn't believe all the stories that were coming out from up here. So I wanted to come and see for myself and try to tell the story from inside the camp, what's really going on.
So what have you seen so far?
Oh, it's been a wonderful experience for me. In the camps, I've seen nothing but peaceful people. We pray before every meal. Sometimes we just walk out into a field and pray anyway. We pray for the water. We pray for each other. And, I haven't seen any violence or negativity. For the most part, it's all been, very upbeat in the camps.
That's good. That's good. And have you been a part of the direct actions at all?
I have. Sometimes they go really well, and sometimes not so well. Saturday last week, we had one where actually we went to two sites. We said the prayers. We put the willow trees in the ground, and when the cops were there in force, they had their big machines and the urban assault vehicles, and they were armed with lethal weapons. When it came to a standoff, though, there was one very brave young lady. I knew her name, but she walked across the road and shook hands with one of the cops.
Okay.
And then it started a whole procession of people.
Right.
And we all shook hands with them.
That's wonderful. Let's see if I have another guest on the line here. Zephyr, do you know who the young lady was, or the lady was that started that shaking the policeman's hand?
Wish I did. I'm still looking for that relative so I can shake their hand.
Okay. Yeah, that was beautiful, and I did see that. By the way, John, this is Zephyr. We were talking in the first hour, and I also talked to Uŋpa Nuŋpa, who was telling us about the differences between that action and then the one with the militarized response.
Sunday was a setup.
Mm-hmm.
I really believe Sunday was a setup. Saturday, they came out with all their bully suits on, and they basically got humiliated. Here they are in all their armored gear, and in the video that I posted on my Facebook, I mean, I've got an elder walking up with a puppy in his hand offering water to these cops, and the cops standing there with an AR-15.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was a young kid. He was scared. I could see it in his eyes. He barely could grow a full mustache, and they give him an AR-15 and send him into a crowd like that. But it was peaceful that day. The liaisons, they worked like a well-oiled machine. They were able to head it off. The next day, though, they came to incite trouble. In my opinion, I think they came there to try and make the water protectors look like an unruly bunch, and I think even that backfired on them.
Yeah, I do too. And it will continue because, well, we started out this show with the principles that are involved in the training process for people who are participating in these direct actions, and their nonviolent principles, and people are committed to sticking to those principles. So it's not.
I think they've done an amazing job of it. Honestly, I mean, I'm a white man. I don't live on the res. I don't know exactly what all these folks go through in their lives, but I know history, and I know what's been done to them, and I know what's being done again to them. Mm-hmm. And to be able to control that anger is a great sign of discipline, and not necessarily control, but guidance from the elders.
Right. I would definitely agree with that. And as I've stated before, I have tremendous respect for it, and I see this as a great step forward in the movement, is this commitment to nonviolence. So I'm happy it's going on. And I'm happy you're there, and I'm happy that you're letting us know how welcome you've been. Some people have doubted that this is, this movement, it goes beyond the indigenous people, but it's simply indigenous led. Everyone is welcome to participate.
Well, in order to be fully welcome as a journalist with a camera in my hand, you have to be respectful of the culture. Mm-hmm. You've got to be respectful of the ceremonies. And because I have, I've got a long history in my life of being around the Lakota, so I knew these things going in. Mm-hmm. Some of the ones coming don't know. And there's some mixed messages sometimes when we go out on the line, especially up around the North Gate where the desecration took place. Mm-hmm. They don't know. And they need to be told, in a uniform message, you can't take photographs of this. Some of them just don't know.
Right. Yeah, they're just not informed. So that's just a messaging and communication thing that can easily be dealt with properly, I think. But again, I mean, we're dealing with conditions where communication is an issue, given the lack of infrastructure. It would be great to have some sort of communication that everybody network that everybody could use. Not just the important people, so to speak, but that everybody could use. So to get.
Well, I'm starting to see the way I'm starting to see the camps building up through the winter. That infrastructure you're talking about may be there.
Mm-hmm.
Communications are getting better all the time. I was in Sechanga this morning, and somebody came on the radio. Does anybody have a line on the side numbers on that airplane? You know, the one that circles us every day, 2 or 3 times a day. It's harassment, plain and simple. I put a long telephoto lens, I pop a shot, I read the numbers, and it's shot back across the river on the radio. The communications are better in that respect.
Very good. That's great to hear. That's great.
I'm seeing progress. You know, I see when I first got here, there were 6 of us in prayer circle before meals, 6 to 8 people, you know, and I've seen now as many as 70, 80 people lined up in front of the kitchen tent from all walks of life.
Wow. So are you planning to stay there for the winter, or are you just going to come in and out to get the story?
I have to come in and out. I've got responsibilities back in Alabama. I'm on my way back to Bama now. I've got to go down there and take care of a little contract job I've got, or I've got to give them their money back, one or the other.
Okay.
So I better go do my work. But I'll be back. You know, I left camp this morning crying like a baby. I do that every time I leave. They get in my heart so deeply.
I know.
That I just don't want to leave.
Yep.
It's not just about a bunch of environmental wackos out here trying to stop progress.
Right.
These are folks that, you know, these are treaties that go back to the 1800s that are being broken.
Mm-hmm.
Again and again and again. I've learned since I've been here that every treaty that the United States government has ever written with the Native Americans has been broken.
Yeah. Yep.
This pipeline breaks the same treaty that Custer broke.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't work out very well for him.
Is that Zephyr laughing or Uŋpa Nuŋpa?
That would be a Zephyr laughing.
Okay. Oh goodness. Well, I certainly am enjoying your southern hospitality, John, and I'm glad that you're there participating with everybody, and hopefully somehow I'll be able to get there at some point.
Well, I'm going back. There's no doubt about it. I've got more stories to tell, and I'm going to focus on speaking from inside the camp and on the prayer circles, the ceremony. You know, the things that are happening on the front line are important, but it's more important for people outside to know that we are not the aggressors.
Mm-hmm. And how can people
say we because I am part of it now.
Yes, you are. And how can people find the work that you've been doing as a journalist while you've been there?
So far, everything from this trip is up on my Facebook page, John Wathen, Wathen.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got a blog up called Standing Rock Water Protectors.
Okay.
And it's only got one post on it so far. That when I go home, I decompress from all of this, and I'll write a long article about the entire week where there's going to be photographs and videos of just some really cool stuff that I saw that had nothing to do with aggression.
Mm-hmm. Good. Well, that was the first thing I noticed about your page is the real focus on the nonviolent aspect of it, and I appreciate that a lot. And
Every incident of violence or anything that has looked like violence so far came from them.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I've seen it. I was here.
And to the listeners, anybody who can find out the name of the woman who started the handshaking, get back to any of us about that so we can talk to her as well and get her story out there. And
well, I'll tell you what, that really made it.
Yeah, that was a stroke of spiritual genius right there.
Well, they lined up about 20 feet, 30 feet back in the grass off the side of the road. And when they came at the road, they looked like they were going to come and break heads. I mean, they had that aggressive look about them.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they stopped short, thank goodness for the horse. I love the horse warriors. They rode up and down the road, and they not only kept the cops at bay, but they kept our people in line too.
Mm-hmm.
And then just out of nowhere, she walked across the road, and that was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in a protest.
Yeah.
At a prayer ceremony. This was not a protest.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it kind of reminded me of the Black Lives Matters image of the woman going up to the police, but then they arrested her, I think. It's sort of that iconic image that should be out there in the media, but isn't, because natives are invisible to the mainstream media. Because the mainstream media is an arm of the government, and so they do, and the government's corporations, so they do their bidding, which is, keep up with the narratives that the only Indians that are left are, don't know what they're doing, kind of thing, and so they're not. It's not worth telling their story. So.
Well, there's one shot in my video that if I could pull a still out of it and make a photograph, which I'm going to try to do when I get back to my big computer, there was an elder who had a puppy in his arm, and he walked up to that young cop with the AR-15. It was all in his flak jacket, and he offered him a bottle of water.
Mm-hmm.
That, to me, of everything we did out there, that has just really stuck in my head.
Yep. The humanization. Even if you're going to dehumanize me, I'm still going to humanize you. And maybe that'll help move things along in a good way.
It's a credit to their spirit that they can even feel that way after what all this country has done to them.
Mm-hmm. Isn't
I'm almost I'm not almost. I am ashamed of this country, and to be to be an American and look back and think, God, my people did that.
Yeah.
It's a hurtful thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I try to make up for it with what I'm doing now.
Right. And it's at least you're dealing with it. I think that those who don't even look at it are the ones who end up continuing to dehumanize Native people, because they have to justify their own not dealing with it, if that makes any sense psychologically.
They do.
Yeah. So you're dealing with it, and I hope that more people look at your example and follow suit. They won't be disappointed. Because, like you say,
I know.
Yeah.
I had an elder told me a long time ago. He said, "This thing up here on top of your head is a 4-pound mucous membrane calculator. You keep your phone numbers up there. You keep your grocery list up there. You keep addresses up there. But when you make decisions about life, turn that thing off and listen to your heart."
There you go.
And that's what I did, and that's what my life's about now.
Wonderful.
That's why I'm here, I guess.
Yep.
Creator said go, and I did.
Well, thank goodness. Zephyr, did you want to talk to John at all, or did you want to get in on the conversation some more?
I would just love to say, hands lifted in gratitude for the work you have done and for the stories that you can share to spread the good word, and for the encouragement that your words have given me today here going back to camp. And just thank you for believing in this work and for doing the labors that you've done. Much gratitude.
Thank you so much for those words. Miniwachoni, the water of life affects every living creature. Mitakuyasin, we're all related. Even the creepy crawlers on the ground have got to have this water.
Yep.
Even those police in the uniforms with the guns have got to have that water.
Yep. And the police are recruiting military. So it's not just a militarization that's going on in terms of the equipment that, the DHS grants that they're getting, and the old wartime, stuff that they're getting, but they're recruiting military personnel into the police. So that's a problem too. That's problematic on many levels. But I would like to say that it's also indicative of the fact that we're all in this together. If this teaches us nothing, we're all in this together. So we're all going to be victims of this militarized police force if we don't all say no to it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. This has been one of the most egregious abuses of power that I've witnessed in a long, long time. I grew up in Birmingham, Alabama in the civil rights era. And that's what this reminds me of. When I saw that girl with the dog, sticking the dog on those people, that's what it reminded me of.
Yeah. Yep.
Have we not progressed anywhere? Have we not grown at all as a country that we can attack animals on human beings?
Yeah.
It's frustrating. It's angry. Chill out. Don't need to get angry. I've had too good a week.
Yeah. So, food for thought here is praise for those who are able to be mindful enough to control their emotions, to keep reaching out and keep humanizing those that are dehumanizing them. That's key.
Right.
That's key to turning their hearts around. It's the spiritual mirror that you hold up in front of them when they're in all that gear, responding to people praying. So maybe we might want to try the actual mirrors. It's going to be a little hard though, given that you're in the woods and things like that. You can't get mirrors, but I've seen those images of people who are fighting for their rights, turning the mirror on the militarized police response, and they can't look at themselves.
Yep.
Yeah. So there's more than one way to do that. Yes.
This is Uŋpa Nuŋpa.
Hi.
Yeah, I just want to echo those sentiments, and that was part of the talk after what happened on Wednesday among the leadership, is the need for us to also remember who we are confronting and where their hearts and minds are at, and the need for us to continue to have the patience and the understanding that these are people who have been indoctrinated into a way of thinking, to believe that, that what they're doing is somehow honorable, using the tactics that they have, using the weapons that they have against prayerful protectors. We need to keep them in mind and their families in mind, and to continue to try to educate them. That was a beautiful story that was shared about the offering of the bottle of water. And so many of our people, we should be grateful that they have the presence of mind to think of that when emotions are running high, when actions are taking place that shock the conscience, to remain grounded enough in our spiritual beliefs and our traditional ways to think to do something like that, offer a bottle of water to a police officer. These are men who, and some women, but mostly men, who, they're not part of the 1%. They're just, earning a paycheck like so many others. And, if we can educate them in a good way, over 17 million people get their water from the Missouri River Basin, upper Missouri River Basin. They are among those 17 people.
Right.
To educate them, the families, that they have a vested interest in this fight as well, if they want to be able to turn on their taps and be able to freely drink what comes from their taps. It is important to bear that in mind. It is important to bear in mind that we are up against fellow human beings, just human beings who have not had the awakening, who have not had the opportunity to have the awakening to what is wrong with the system, the systemic problems that exist in this country, the problems with the political system, the problem with the economic system that always seeks to divide us, always divides and conquers. And, we could use this fight against this particular pipeline to broaden the message, to broaden the issue, to seek systemic change so that Americans, regardless of background or ethnicity or a so-called race, can join together and find a better way of life. And the fact that, indigenous people have now placed themselves in a position to be the educators about a different way, a new way, that will hopefully sustain our environment in a good way for our children, for our grandchildren, and our grandchildren's grandchildren. This is an opportunity for us to do it, and to hear these words spoken on your show is very important and needs to be echoed throughout our media, the underground media, the revolutionary media, because you won't hear it from the corporate media. You won't hear it from their paymasters, certainly. They have a vested interest in keeping things just the way. And, to hear the words of the guest today, I'm most grateful for. I'm most grateful for your show to have the platform in order to get this new way of thinking, which is actually an old way of thinking, back into people's hearts, back into their minds. So, much gratitude from me here, and that'll be all I have to say today, actually.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. It's hard to...
He's so right about the training and the way they're indoctrinated. These guys, they're trained to handle and control violence. They don't know how to handle peace.
Right.
And they try to react to it the same way, and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
You could see in those cops' face in the first few photographs I took when she walked across the road, they were looking at each other like, well, are you going to shake her head? And one guy did, and they're all looking at him like, okay, I guess that's okay. And then everybody shook their head. There were a few of the cops that refused. I mean, they just stood there like the playground bully and wouldn't shake hands with anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But there were a lot of them that, you could tell they really didn't want to be there.
Yeah. And that experience will continue to grow inside of them. Because that was a seed of love.
Yeah. And the headline that came out, one of the headlines I've seen that came out about the more violent action was state troopers interfere with Native American prayer ceremony. The headlines are beginning to shift.
Yep. Good. Because, 21 people arrested for praying. And again, here we are back at who are the only people to get arrested in this country for praying? That's natives. Because,
yeah.
Again. So in another, another way of looking at it is here's another wound that's been brought back up to heal, that we have an opportunity to heal. By just looking at it, mentioning it, noticing it's there, and doctoring it in any way that we can, and saying, "Look, this is."
It's almost like they're chasing down the ghost dancers again.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And since then, women's voices are being heard again. Women are singing freely again. But we went through a very dangerous time where it was dangerous to sing because the government outlawed Native religion, and they still don't know the difference between a song welcoming a baby to the world and a war song. And they don't understand that war songs are not about killing. So, but it's shifting. It is shifting, and we just have to continue to not only get the word out, but continue to hold that space within ourselves and for the greater community. So I'm really thankful right now for this conversation and everybody that's here.
I had a conversation with a Kola this morning, and he said there's two ways to look at this. It could be the end of time or a new day. Mm-hmm. And I want to believe that what's happening at Standing Rock is a new day.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to put my energy and heart into, it being a new day, like Uŋpa Nuŋpa just said, a new day, but a very old way of, a very old way as well. So we have about a little over 10 more minutes. I wanted to make sure that Zephyr said everything that she needed to say.
Can I just put one shout out to all the Idle No More grandmothers there that are laying down their prayers across Turtle Island for us?
Absolutely.
And absolutely lifting hands that they even started years ago fighting for the waters and for our murdered and missing Indigenous women that had absolutely no story time and were being taken by the thousands. And the degradation, the environmental degradation, the environmental attacks, and this pillaging of our Mother Earth is part and parcel of the man camps that come and take our women and our youth for nefarious reasons. The violence to one is the violence to all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, many people don't realize the connection between these man camps that get built to put these pipelines in, and their connection to human trafficking, and primarily human trafficking of
young Native women.
Yeah.
It's really sad. As I was traveling out from Oakland and when I came back from Eastern Washington recently, seeing so many missing children in teen posters and how many are carrying faces of Indigenous youth. And then seeing the refineries and seeing this pipeline being built and understanding that this is all interconnected, because we are all interconnected. And as evil is spreading and this cancer is growing in one place, it's growing and spreading in other places. And so it is a harm. It's not just to our water and our air. It's not just to our elders and our ones to come. It is the ones that are walking around right now that should be couched in safety and security to grow, and instead are also being threatened in very violent ways.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's something to consider in all of this as well, is that we're not only trying to stop a pipeline here, but we're trying to stop a way of life that does not honor life. So, and go back to a way of honoring life, of living a way that honors all life.
Being in this camp feels as though many of us are called to step back into the medicine wheel and step back into those original teachings and to carry those original instructions into fruition each and every day, with every step, with every breath, with every prayer, with every action, and to be in a good way with each other. And in this camp, we're remembering our interdependence and our connectivity. The Winning Camp has had help support from so many individuals and other camps throughout the larger camp, and we would not be able to make it without that help. I am one person. I cannot do it all on my own, but by our collective works together, we will remain and we will stand strong together because we are holding each other. I
will pray for that every day.
Thank
to
you.
continue. I really will.
There can never be too many prayers. That's what I tell the relatives back home. There are never too many prayers. So please, please send those blessings to anyone listening. We can use them, and we are so grateful. So grateful to each and every one.
I would like to shout out to everybody who helps me with this show. Revolution Radio. Please support Revolution Radio as well. Getting this out is not free, but we will work for free to make sure that it gets out. I do have sponsors, but they don't tell me anything about content. Content is completely up to me. So it's just a little bit of help there, making sure that this show continues. And I want to thank my husband, Majikia, for the great work he's doing with the promotions. Since he started, our listenership has really gone through the roof dramatically. So he's been helping so much to get the word out there. So thanks so much, Majikia. And I want to just put it out there for anybody who's really doubting that it can happen for you. If you really want to go, just put it out there. Just even if it's just telling one person that it's something that you want to do, and just let it spread from there. I think that people who are truly called might also have some fear, which is natural, but I think that's also an indication that you might be on the right track if there's also a little bit of resistance and fear. So you're that's a normal thing too. So work with it, and so it doesn't mean you shouldn't go if you want it and you're also afraid of it at the same time. That's probably more of an indication that it's something you should do, because we should always step up to things that we're challenged by, and that's another thing I've got to thank my husband for, is he always pushes me to take that step, when I'm afraid to do it. So, like this show, I mean, he's always supported me, and I used to, it's not so much anymore, but I used to get a lot of fear before I went on the air, and I don't so much anymore, but it's an amazing thing that happens when you face your fear. You find out how strong you are. So do it.
You sound mighty confident to me.
Thank you. I can fake it pretty good.
I'd like to give a shout out, if I could, to all of those that are off the reservation and off the campsites that have been sending in donations and prayers. I hear from people. My site goes around the world, and I'm hearing from people that are praying in New Zealand and in Africa and China. People around the world are paying attention to this better than our own country.
Mm-hmm. It's
so
true.
A big shout out to all of those that are supporting us that can't be here with us. And
right.
One more small thing to the media, to the journalists that are coming. We've got to be very careful to speak nothing but the truth. We can't sensationalize it. We can only tell exactly what we see and know for a fact. When we start saying things that can be discredited, then it discredits all of our story. So just as a word of warning, or not warning, but just encouragement, stick to what we know when we report.
Very good. Yeah. Because that's part of, get this underground media, is that a lot of us are called to do it, but may not have the experience or the journalism training, and it's sort of training as you go. So it's good to hear those things from people who've been doing it for a while. These are the things that we run into, is that you're going to want to sensationalize it to get the story out there. You're going to want to, put some information out there before it's been confirmed. Don't do it.
Some kid the other day posted on his Facebook that an airplane was dropping mustard gas on them.
Oh dear. Yeah.
Mustard gas? Come on. NATO would be all over them.
Yeah.
You got to be very careful about what we put out in public is all I'm saying, because the world judges us by the ones that are not telling the truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, except for the mainstream media.
Yeah, well, there you go. I'm not mainstream. I have no editor. I'm self-financed. Nobody can tell me to shut up.
There you go. Me too. And it is really interesting that other countries are covering this story more because being that globalism is reality, you would think they'd want to shut the story up all over the world, but they're not. So, but I'm sure there's another angle there as well that will be revealed.
Thank goodness for social media.
Yeah,
social media has taken down the barriers of the for-profit media that Ronald Reagan set in motion, buying up all of these media sources to where, everything you read now comes out of Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
It's been approved by, you don't hear the other side of these stories unless you get to the freelance journalists and people like Amy Goodman, who are basically, we're using social media to reach out to other countries, where our own country they are trying to shut it up.
Yep. And you don't hear any mention of it as well, in the election or anything, because they know that's not, that's not what people know anything about. So why would they even mention it? And the one presidential candidate that they, of course, won't let in, she got an arrest warrant out for her. Thank you, Zephyr. Thank you, Uŋpa Nuŋpa. And thank you, John, so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Gives new meaning to the term coming together for our community. Not just our human community. Our Earth community. One of the things that shields people during environmental destruction, emotionally shields people, is it's just killing animals and plants. Somehow it's a greater tragedy when human dies. And although I see the need for emotionally shielding yourself, at some point we all have to take in the reality of the environmental destruction that we're living under. We may not have all the data right. Then again, we might. I'm not really interested in the argument of whether it's humans causing it or not. That's a ridiculous psyop rabbit hole. For all you overthinkers out there, we are that powerful as humans. We affect our environment every single day. But we're not all oil trillionaires, are we? And we don't all have a voice in the political process. In fact, very few of us do. Yet we're under this illusion that we live in a democracy. But democracy doesn't exist anywhere on the planet. Not on a large scale, anyway. It's an ideal. It's a meme. It's a goal. But how do we know about it? How do we know it can exist? I think we know it can exist because somewhere inside of us it exists now, and somewhere in human history it existed before. That's how we can know about these ideals. I'm going to put out a GoFundMe for the people that you've just heard of. Zephyr and Uŋpa Nuŋpa, who's been keeping us informed all along. They need a few things for winter camp, and the requests are quite modest. Extreme temperature sleeping bags. They need 4 of those. They need waterproof boots. They need waterproof jackets. I think as a community we can come up with those items or money for those items for people who are willing to winter camp in a teepee to stop a pipeline. The reason this fight is so important is because if the poorest people in this country, poor by law is what I call them, that's what Indian law guarantees for Indians, poverty and poisoning. Poverty and living on poisoned land that's continually dumped on. That's what Indian law guarantees. And Indian trust law guarantees that Indians can't prosper because their land is in trust. And sovereignty is on paper. So if the poorest people in this country can stop this pipeline and assert their treaty rights, and the rest of us are listening and back them up, then that's going to prove on a very, very real level how much power we actually do have. Did we dream this shit up? The slavery that we're living under? No. That's all on the psychopaths in charge. So throw that guilt right out the window because it's an implant. And take your power. And the way we take our power is by joining together and saying no to this invisible slavery that's not quite invisible once the veil is lifted. You can't put it back and pretend like it was never lifted. So I'm going to attach some information to these recordings. You'll see it in Spreaker, you'll see it in YouTube, and you'll see it on my blog, Psychopaths in Charge, of how that you can help these people who you just heard speak from their heart about why they're there. Thanks for listening. Thanks for caring enough and having an open enough heart to listen all the way through. Coming up on the bridge, we have Lila June Johnson, and we've rescheduled Linda Black Elk. Many blessings, friends.